Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. Today we're taking a look at a very interesting little processor, one that you might not expect to see in a gaming benchmark in 2025. This is the Intel Core i3-105F, a 4-core 8-thread CPU that first launched back in early 2021. At the time, it was one of the most affordable entry-level processors for budget PC builders. But now, 4 years later, things have changed a lot. In 2025, I just checked my local market recently and I found used units selling for around $40, which puts it in the why not category, especially if you're trying to put together a very budget-friendly gaming PC. So today, we're asking a simple question. Can you still game with the Core i3-10105F in 2025? Is this tiny little 4-core CPU still capable of delivering a good gaming experience, or has time finally caught up with it? To find out, I paired it with a very realistic budget gaming setup. We've got the GTX 1660 Super, which is still a solid 1080p card. We've also got 16 gigabytes of dual-channel 3200 MHz RAM, and of course an SSD so the loading times don't get in the way. Alright, let's get straight into the benchmarks. We're starting off with CS2, running at 1080p on medium settings, and right away, things are looking very good. In a full deathmatch lobby, the average FPS sits at around 150, and more importantly, the gameplay feels extremely smooth. There are no stutters, no micro freezes, and nothing that breaks the pacing of the game. The CPU is only used at about 50%, the temperature stays under 60 degrees Celsius, and power consumption is around 35 watts. So for competitive titles, this CPU still performs excellently. Next up, we move to PUBG, a game known for being pretty heavy on CPUs, especially during the early stages of the match. But the i3-10105F actually surprised me here. Even during parachuting, when many older CPUs stutter badly, there were no lag spikes. The whole experience felt surprisingly smooth. The FPS hovered around 100, and all the animations like looting, running, and gunfights were very stable. The CPU was working harder here at around 85% usage, temperatures reached 62 degrees Celsius, and power consumption was about 36 watts, but the gameplay remained completely playable. Moving on, we have GTA 5, running on high settings at 1080p. Even though this game is from 2013, it can still be demanding on the CPU because of the open world and the sheer number of systems running at once, but here, the i3 handled it effortlessly. Average FPS was around 125, driving felt smooth, combat was responsive, and missions loaded quickly thanks to the SSD. The CPU usage stayed around 60%, clocks were stable at 4.2 GHz, and power draw was just 35 watts. No issues at all. GTA 5 runs beautifully on the CPU. Next, we tested Forza Horizon 5, a visually stunning game that can also put a decent load on both the CPU and GPU. At 1080p medium, the experience was once again smooth. The CPU sat at around 60% usage, temperatures were a cool 58 degrees Celsius, and the game felt stable whether you were free roaming, racing, or driving through more demanding areas. There were no stutters or weird loading delays. It was just a clean, smooth gameplay session. Now let's move to one of the heaviest modern titles, Cyberpunk 2077. This is where you expect a 4-core CPU to struggle. At 1080p medium, the i3-105F definitely starts to feel some pressure. CPU usage hits 100% frequently, especially while driving through the busy city. But, and this is the surprising part, the gameplay remained completely playable. Average FPS was around 60 and the 1% low was 41, which means you do get some dips but nothing game breaking. Despite being fully loaded, the CPU maintained stable clock speeds and the frame pacing was still smooth enough to enjoy the game. After that, we tested Red Dead Redemption 2, another massive open world game. At 1080p medium, the performance was actually very solid. The average FPS hovered around 90, CPU usage stayed below 90%, and the GPU was fully utilized, which means there wasn't any serious CPU bottleneck. Combat felt good, exploration was smooth, and missions played out without stutters. Overall, a surprisingly solid result for such a cheap CPU. Next on the list is Assassin's Creed Mirage. Despite being a newer game, it doesn't actually hammer the CPU as hard as something like Cyberpunk. During testing, CPU usage stayed around 50% and temperatures were only around 55 degrees Celsius. The game ran smoothly with stable mission performance and fluid movement across the map, no freezing, no sudden drops, just a clean, enjoyable gameplay experience. After that, we jump into Horizon Zero Dawn at 1080p low settings. And again, the i3 handled it just fine. The average FPS was around 75 with a 1% low of 54 frame pacing stayed consistent, and even in large open world battles or more demanding scenes, the CPU didn't show any major struggles. This game is very GPU heavy, so the 10105F wasn't the limiting factor here. Next up is Spider-Man 2, a modern and visually rich game. Surprisingly, the CPU didn't struggle here either. It only used around 50% of its capacity, letting the GPU run at full load. The average FPS was around 85, swinging across the city felt smooth, and combat sequences ran without issues. For a 4-core CPU, this result is better than expected. Finally, the last game we tested is God of War, and this is the one title that really pushes the i3-10105F to its limits. Throughout the entire play session, the CPU stayed between 97% and 100% usage, but even though it was fully loaded, the performance remained surprisingly stable. The clock held at 4.2 GHz, power draw was around 45 watts, and temperatures stayed under 66 degrees Celsius. The 1% low was 62 FPS, and the average FPS reached 90, which is very impressive considering how demanding this game is. Even at full load, the CPU didn't choke or produce stutters, everything remained smooth. So after going through all these games, light titles, heavy titles, competitive shooters, open world RPGs, we can finally draw a conclusion. The Intel Core i3-105F is still shockingly capable in 2025. Yes, it's only 4 cores. Yes, some modern games will max it out. And yes, there are moments where you can definitely feel that the CPU is working very hard, but at the end of the day, for 1080p gaming, especially when paired with the GTX 1660 Super and fast dual-channel RAM, this CPU still delivers very good gaming performance. In a time when CPU prices are going up and budgets are getting tighter, a $40 CPU that can run all of these games smoothly is honestly a fantastic value. If you're looking to build a budget gaming PC, or if you need something cheap to get your system up and running, the i3-10105F is absolutely still worth considering in 2025. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like, subscribe to the channel for more content, and I'll see you all in the next one.